Come in, Southern California. This is Radio Free Los Angeles. Do you copy? Repeat, do you copy?
Now broadcasting from behind the Iron Curtain in the People's Republic of California, we bring you the voice of free men, free markets, and limited constitutional government. Welcome to citizen-sponsored Radio Free Los Angeles, with the president of the California Tax Limitation Committee, Mike Alexander, and America's funniest reporter, Carl Kozlowski.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Radio Free Los Angeles. This is Mike Alexander. I want to invite you to call and share your thoughts with us tonight, 866-870-5752. And remember, this is citizen-sponsored radio here in Los Angeles, and I want you to go to our website here, which is Radio Free Los Angeles, all spelled out, radiofreelosangeles.net. Go to that contribute button and give us a little bit of support, help to keep this on the air. And while I'm on that subject, I want to thank some good friends from the state of Washington, used to be here in the People's Republic of California. Jim and Sue, thank you for your generous contribution. And I'm trying to remember, somebody else sent us one. Let's make sure that we thank them. We get many contributions.
Chris and Halcyon in Tennessee.
Chris and Halcyon in Tennessee.
Who also fled the state of California.
Yes.
But they're still supporting us all the way over there from Tennessee. Yeah.
That's amazing.
They are indeed. And while we're on the subject of Sierra Madre, we're going to be covering a lot of things. In the first part of the show, we're going to talk about the continuing reign of terror, political terror out in the city of Sierra Madre. Here last week, they were threatening to disincorporate their city, which in many ways might be a good way, a good beginning, if they were actually going to get rid of the pension obligations and lower taxes. But alas and alack, that's not their plan. They followed it up early in the last week here by sending a cease and desist letter, cautioning the proponents, who would be Earl Ritchie and David McGonigal, against using the city seal. And, of course, those guys didn't actually use it. The ones who used the city seal was California Tax Limitation Committee, and they were worried that somehow we had misled readers in sending out our emails there to people, because there was an incorrect calculation of the percentage of increase in the budget there in Sierra Madre, and we're working on those numbers now. But it was we who had used the seal. Now, as to whether anybody was actually misled into believing that the city was sponsoring that, anybody with a room temperature IQ and minimum literacy, even if they attended our California schools, would probably be able to read that email and figure out that we weren't happy with the city. They might even be able to figure out that the city is not happy with us. As to whether anybody was misled by the numbers, that's very interesting, because they said that we were fibbing about our numbers. Well, that's really rich, because we've been on the city of Sierra Madre over their phony numbers. And if you look at their CAFRs, a comprehensive annual financial report, you'll see right there current liabilities unpaid will be the pension obligations, which total up around $12.3 million. That's what they say, but that's a phony number. That number is based upon CalPERS phony returns, where they claim they're going to get 7.5% each year for the next 30 years. The real number that the city of Sierra Madre actually owes its pensions, owes its employees from whom it's been borrowing, that number is a lot closer to $40 million. And you get that $40 million if you use a more reasonable rate of annual return, closer to 4%. There's no insurance company, no investment company, nobody is forecasting 7.5% annual returns. And even if they are, they're not willing to back it up with a contract. Now, whether the returns over the next 30 years are going to be 7.5% or whether they're going to be 3.85% or 4% is irrelevant. The fact is that's a risk which you and I as taxpayers should not have to accept. We need to get out of the pension business, period. And from here on out, we California taxpayers and federal taxpayers need to make sure that we're not guaranteeing any particular pension benefit to anybody. These public employees, whatever their salary, and many of them are outrageous, we'll get to that in Government Grifter of the Week later on in this broadcast, but whatever their salaries are, they should get those salaries paid every 2 weeks, and 10% of their salary, their post-employment benefits there, they should get every 2 weeks. And at the end of those 2 weeks, 26 pay periods a year, we should be even with our public employees, and they should be done with us. There shouldn't be any doubt as to what they're going to get. They should have gotten it every 2 weeks, just like the rest of America runs. The only place where it runs different is here in the state of California. So many states, and as a result, they put us $1 to $2 trillion in the hole. And those $1 to $2 trillion in unpaid, unfunded pension benefits are not only going to sink the state, they are going to sink the public employees who think, I emphasize who think, that they're actually going to get paid those monies. Well, forgive the bad grammar, but it ain't going to happen. There isn't enough money. And an increasing number of Californians are figuring that out. And in fact, even the paper of record of the California Communist Party, the Los Angeles Times, has figured out that these pensions can't be paid at their current levels, and they've been doing great work. I know I knock them a lot, but I do want to compliment the Los Angeles Times for the work that they have done on this pension issue and calling it for what it is. Now, the utility user tax repeals that the California Tax Limitation Committee helped local citizens to put on the ballot, they are designed not so much to take the money away from the government, but as to the local city government, but to highlight the fact that they're not managing their money well. And out there in the city of Sierra Madre, the city attorney, as you know, here a couple of weeks ago, said that, hey, if we lose this $2.6 million in revenue here in the holy city of Sierra Madre, hey, this place is going to have to shut down. We'll have to disincorporate. More about that in one of our future broadcasts. But what the city attorney ended up admitting there is how close they are to being insolvent in that city. And if they had to pay those pension underfundings, if CalPERS, the California Pension and Retirement System, if they were not artificially overstating the estimated returns in the future and artificially, therefore, underestimating the actual amount of current pension debt, if it weren't for that, these cities would have to write $10 million checks right now. And as a matter of fact, they probably have to write a check for a lot more. And when, not if, when they couldn't write that check, they'd be going to bankruptcy rather than into this very artificial third dimension, legal third dimension called disincorporation. We're going to talk a lot about that in the future. So what they've done is something that you business owners out there absolutely cannot do. You cannot borrow money from your pension plan. That's what they've done. And they by running up a debt. And this brings me to another thing, which we will talk a little bit more about here in the show later on, and that is the myth about state and federal governments not being able to run deficits. Every once in a while, you will hear some pious, pompous politician get on the radio or telephone and harumph at the federal budget, allowing us how he's a state governor or a state politician or a city politician and proclaiming that he is unable or they are unable as state and local politicians to run deficits. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. What do you think the pension debt is? It's a way of writing checks that future generations have to cover. It's also a way in which bond debt is used to write checks for current advantage that are going to be paid by future generations of taxpayers, and not by even by people like me. Hell, We've gone through all of my money, and most of my kids were working on my grandchildren's, great-grandchildren, and great-great-grandchildren's money. And that's what we're dealing with Trump and the federal so-called budget here. I think it came in at 1.3 trillion. Hey, by the way, I got 1 minute to go here, but I started into a rant. I want to hear from you guys out there on your opinion about this federal budget, because we've got a lot of questions. We want to try to link it with what's going on. When we come back, I'm going to welcome back Carl Kozlowski.
Hello.
And I'm going to pay my courtesies here to Jonathan Wilson, who's here.
Thank you very much, Mike.
All right. I just went right into direct. Give us a call. Let us know what you think about these issues. We can be reached at area code 866-870-5752. Radio Free Los Angeles.
If you like what you're hearing and would like to support Radio Free Los Angeles and the California Tax Limitation Committee, please call area code 626-792-1772, 626-792-1772, or kindly visit our website, catlc.net, catlc.net. You can also watch Radio Free Los Angeles on Facebook Live at radiofreela.us.
If you'd like to talk with Radio Free Los Angeles, the phone lines are wide open. 866-870-KRLA. That's 866-870-5752. We're live, local, and here to talk with you. 866-870-KRLA.
All right, back with you here after our break. You know, I just got into a big rant. I was so ticked off about the city of Sierra Madre that I was discourteous, and I failed to welcome back Carl Kozlowski. He was gone for a couple of weeks, doing some special events and so forth. It's good to have you back, Carl.
Well, thank you. Thank you for welcoming me back. I was about to be outraged, sir. Outraged.
Yeah, there you go. He's a sensitive man like myself. And then we have Jonathan Wilson. Jonathan, how are you?
Doing pretty good. Yeah, you started in hot there. You had a lot to say this week, I think. Yeah.
Well, we've been at it. We're under attack, and that is a good thing because, believe me, there are a lot of citizens that are waking up, and they've got the mayor. What is the name of the mayor of Sierra Madre out there?
Arizmendi. Rochelle Arizmendi.
Okay, well, at any rate, Madam Mayor is out there running a series of pseudo town halls called Meet the Mayor, and I'm hoping that there's somebody out there in Radioland who went to one of these events here, a little bit of local political theater, because I'd like to know if they have yet addressed the issue of the pension bomb and the pension debt. I was wondering how these City Hall meetings went. I know they've got another one coming up this week, and I hope to have somebody out there who can report back to us and ask them a few questions. We've got quite a bit going on there. But, what has dominated the news this past week has been, and for good reasons, has been the federal budget. As you know, they concocted this mess again in Washington, Republicans and Democrats alike. And really, this takes us back to the roots of the show. We are nonpartisan. We have no great confidence in the government whatsoever, no matter who it is, and we're dealing there with one single party. Democrats, Republicans are all the same people with all the same objectives. And there's just so much to say about what happened last week, but let me relate it back to one of the first things that we talked about when we started the show, and that is the 3 or 4 realities that we're dealing with. Number one, the federal government is, as I said in 2016, is not going to be $1 smaller, nor are taxes going to be $1 lower in 2021 than they are in 2017. It's just not going to happen. And of course, we already see that it's not happening. And ultimately, this federal government is not going to be able to reform itself within, although I'll give Donald Trump high marks for doing a lot of things over there in the EPA. He's been making changes in defense. This federal government and the Trump administration here is not without merit. They're not without achievement. But viewed from a macro perspective, from our perspective as people who value our liberties, who value fiscal responsibility, fiscal sanity, this whole thing is out of control. I don't believe that it can. I don't believe that it will reform itself from within. I believe that the only solution is going to be a resort to Article 5. Mark Levin has articulated this in his Liberty Amendments. But the Article 5 process provided in the United States Constitution for a convention of states, not a constitutional convention, but a convention of states where the states who constituted the Union in the beginning come together, make proposals, articulate amendments that then leave that committee and go to the various states for ratification, ultimately by 3/4 of the states. There's nothing disorderly about it. It's not a runaway convention. It's none of these canards that have been hurled at this process. Clearly, we have to do something. And especially when we look at what happened this past week, we're looking at party rule. When I say party rule, I'm not using that word in the ordinary narrow sense of Republican Party dealing with Democrat Party. No, we're looking at a single unified party that functions almost the same as party functions in Russia or in China or in other semi, if not tyrannical governments. The process that emerged, all the negotiations took place among apparatchiks of this one-party apparatus. There was no deliberation. How could there be? Everybody's been talking here for the last 9 years, starting with this massive thing called Obamacare, in which 1,000 or 1,200 pages was hatched, and nobody had an opportunity even to read it. Republicans got elected on that. Mitch McConnell campaigned against it. I'm certain that Paul Ryan campaigned against that kind of thing, and lo and behold, they participated in it on several occasions. And what happens there, ladies and gentlemen, is that our normal representative arrangements have no opportunity to function. If our people, if our representatives, whoever they are, even the wildest, nuttiest left-winger still represents somebody somewhere, that guy, that woman, whoever it is a representative, have an absolute right and duty under the Constitution to review what is being proposed to be acted in law and weigh in on it, have hearings, a normal budgetary process as required, in my view, by the Constitution itself. We don't have that. They just cobble it together, hurry it up, give somebody 24 hours to vote up or down, make it a matter of party discipline, and they even managed to stampede Trump into signing the doggone thing. And it is truly outrageous. It's going to give Trump huge problems, but worse than that, he gives us new problems. Under these conditions, how is it that we can be that it can be said that we have a constitutional government? How is it that it can be said that we are free men and free women who govern ourselves when the very representatives through whom we're required to govern ourselves, we have no other alternative, when those very people, our representatives, are frozen out of the legislative process? What results is nothing more than party diktat, and it is an absolute outrage. And everybody, left, right, middle, anywhere between, Republican, Libertarian, Democrat, I don't care who you are, you really have to be concerned about what happened, because whichever way the wind is blowing today, that process can take it the other way. We are not exempt from history. We may be exceptional in America, but we are not exempt. We've got David on line one who wants to weigh in on this. David from Van Nuys. Go, David. What's your comment tonight?
So, what I'm hearing you say, I mostly agree with. I mean, you're talking about Trump, the fact that he's signed a $1.3 trillion budget. Unfortunately, government is growing, and I do believe that the taxes that are going to be coming in are going to cover it. The problem that I see is that by raising interest rates, which are a necessary evil, are going to take out most of that and keep adding to us. So when you talk about 2021 not being any better, they're absolutely correct. We're going to have to go into another recession, and what will happen is they'll reduce the interest rates, and then you'll see it start to come into play.
Right.
I'm not worried about the federal government so much. I'm in Van Nuys, at least that's where I'm sitting right now, and I have more of a problem with our local and state governments.
Thank you.
I don't know if you get into, because I just happened to flip the channels and heard you, if you flip on that into the show, because I can articulate a lot on that personally.
Great.
So I mean, we're paying more.
Well, David, let me respond to you. First of all, you pushed the right button tonight, which was KRLA 870, and this is the show that focuses almost exclusively on state and local issue. We started talking about the federal budget problem, and I'm going to link that to what goes on at the local level as well. It's all part of the same game. But you are exactly right. You're concerned about the city of Los Angeles, and you're concerned about the state of California, and your obvious impression that these issues are overlooked to our great disadvantage. You are absolutely correct on that, and that is the focus of this show. We tend not to focus on the federal follies, but we do try to point out and articulate the fact that spending and regulation are out of control at every level, state, federal, and local. They are all linked, and you don't have to look any further than the flaky city on the bay, San Francisco, who managed to outlaw fur coats or whatever the hell it is that they do up there to amuse themselves. But, there just doesn't seem to be any end to it. And I'm delighted that you're now one of our listeners and we keep you in.
And that's great. You want San Francisco? If you get into the fur, at my age, I didn't go back into the '60s to be one of the the people that were in that era of everything, and people going in and pouring paint on fur coats and stuff like that.
Right.
I am very much. Although I can't afford to donate a lot to the animal world, because what we are doing as human beings is absolutely despicable. To try and save some of these animals. We won't be here if we don't save them. I mean, that just goes without saying. But moving off of that, history repeats. If we could go back in time, but we can't. So we are here today.
Right.
We've got a new gas tax. Well, folks, wake up. Start,
Thank you.
I don't mind the kids doing what they're doing, but they're being engineered by a political party at this point that wants to undo the Constitution. Our founding fathers had limited it to just so many words, and they gave us the freedom to interpret it. And the political parties, as they see fit, at their whim, at the time, and as you say, when the wind blows, you're going to see this happen. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm in favor or anti, although it sounds like it, of guns. But if we ever become attacked in this country, you're going to wish you had one.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, it may sound weird when I say that. But,
that's right.
But, I don't own a gun, and I can't say that I will. I'm a pretty good shot, though. All right. So
that's good. We'll find one and learn how to use it. David, thanks for calling in. Do so again. We'd love to have you again back on in the future. Now, we'll be coming up on our break here in just a few minutes. And when we go into the second half hour of our program, we're going to have on Mike Mohill, who is, in the very best of the sense of the word, a Glendale gadabout. And that's a nice old a journalistic term for somebody who runs about and calls attention to things that nobody else does. You're going to enjoy having Mike on. I'll introduce him further in the next half hour when we start. In the meantime, I just want to wrap up and respond to one thing that David did say. I think he mentioned that he thought that maybe taxes were going to come along to cover that budget. I'm not sure what you said. I should have talked to you about it, Dave, when you were still on here. But the fact is that this $1.3 trillion dollar budget, I'm not sure what the heck those numbers were, but ultimately it's going to jack up the deficit, the fiscal deficit, another $1 trillion. And this is absolutely outrageous, even with record tax revenues. Now, remember, anybody wants to say that Donald Trump cut taxes. Donald Trump did not cut taxes. He cut tax rates. Now, that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. But those taxes are going up. The government is taking in record revenues. It is spending everything. As they once said about Louis B. Mayer, he said he had, or Louis B. Mayer once said about a director, he had an unlimited budget, and he exceeded it. We'll see you on the other side. Radio Free Los Angeles, 866-870-5752.
Come in, Southern California. This is Radio Free Los Angeles. Do you copy? Repeat, do you copy?
Now broadcasting from behind the Iron Curtain in the People's Republic of California, we bring you the voice of free men, free markets, and limited constitutional government. Welcome to citizen-sponsored Radio Free Los Angeles with the president of the California Tax Limitation Committee, Mike Alexander, and America's funniest reporter, Carl Kozlowski.
All right, back with you here, Mike Alexander. Call us and let us know your thoughts about what we've been discussing. I'm real happy that David from Van Nuys called in and wanted more emphasis on state and local issues. That's exactly where the emphasis of this program is. And by the way, Mike Mohill, if you're listening out there, call the studio. Maybe we gave you 8:35 as the time, but whatever. Call on in. We'll talk to you. Mike Mohill is from Glendale. Glendale's one of the areas where we got involved very early on in filing a utility users tax repeal over there. We qualified it. We had to get over 2,000 signatures at one point. It requires fewer now. But over there in the city of Glendale, their UUT, utility users tax, was generating $27 million a year. We put that on the ballot over there. There wasn't a lot of money that was available, but I'm telling you, over 10,000 people in Glendale voted for tax reform. They recognized what we did, and that was that Glendale was a city that was out of control. And we used that UUT repeal vote over there as an opportunity to point out the various problems that the city was having and their failure to come to grips with their spending, failure to come to grips particularly with their pension debt. And we created a ballot statement out there that talked about a lot of the salaries and a lot of the income. But the one thing that we pointed out was that the city of Glendale had an admitted pension debt, underfunded, of about $450 million. And we contended in the ballot statement that the real debt was closer to $1 billion. The city of Glendale squawked like stuck pigs and sicked their lawyers on the proponents and took it down to court. And ultimately, the proponents prevailed, and the court permitted them to continue to keep the $1 billion number in there as fair political speech. Was more than fair political speech. It represented another actuarial view of the information put out by the Stanford Institute up there. And the reason that I'm mentioning that to you tonight is that number has actually gone up, and now their market pension liability may be closer to $1.6 billion. So it's gone up maybe 60% in a couple, 3 years. Their actuarial pension debt, that is the number that is the phony number that comes in from CalPERS, that's still at about $450 million. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is for a city of less than fewer than 200,000 people. Yeah, it is, and that's a city that the last time I checked, between their Glendale Water and Power and the city, they had a budget, so-called budget, inflows and outflows of over $850 million per year. There is no such thing as small government. There may be local government. Some of the cities may be small, but there's nothing small about them. And all of these numbers affect you and me, because in these cities, I mean, we eat in Glendale. Heck, we're broadcasting here from Glendale. The rent includes property taxes that goes to the city of Glendale. If you're passing through, if you live in Phoenix and you're on your way to Van Nuys, you're probably going to pass through Glendale. You stop for a hamburger, you pay taxes. All of this goes to government. There is almost no such a thing anymore as local, particularly when you figure that when these plans go upside down, they're going to expect either the state of California or the citizens of the United States, the federal government, to come in. So when these city people protest in these utility user tax election disputes that we have, characterize us as outsiders. Hey, I only wish I was an outsider. The real outsiders are the taxpayers. But one of these days, when you've got no money, you're going to come looking to me, and then I won't be an outsider. You're going to be the insider. You're going to be inside my pocket. So let's forget all this. Hey, we've got we now have on the line our special guest, Mike Mohill. Are you there, Michael?
Hi there, Mike.
How are you, my friend?
Doing fine, thank you.
Hey, great.
Thank you for inviting me on your show.
Well, it's my pleasure to have you on. I can't tell you how many people over the years have said, "Hey, watch that Mike Mohill. He's a little nuts." Yeah, he's nuts. Yeah, but that doesn't. The government makes him nuts. All of their machinations. Mike Mohill has been out there for a long time, sounding the alarm about Glendale city government. He has a wonderful newsletter. What do you call it? The Glendale Community Newsletter, Mike?
Yeah, I call it. It's strictly done by email.
Yeah.
Let me plug myself.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's MJ Mohill. That's Mike, Jack, and then Mohill, Mohill @gmail.com.
Right.
And we're pushing close to 13,000 subscribers right now.
Yes.
And we're very proud of that. Every day we're getting new people joining. They like. I feel flattered that people every day are signing up. They're upset. In fact, ever have a what they call a backhanded compliment. I was getting into our councilman by the name of Ara Najarian.
Yes. And
I was questioning him every week, going after his irresponsibility on pensions, on the overdevelopment of the city. Just goes, I'm hammering him. And then he had to call me a cockroach.
Wow.
A cockroach or a cockroach?
Getting personal.
Yeah, it sounds like Serpico, or not Serpico. What's that famous narco?
Oh, Scarface.
Scarface, a cockroach. Right, so he calls you a cockroach. And so what happened?
Well, what happened is he's very upset with me because this week, if you got my community newsletter,
yeah,
I talked about the fact that he was responsible for the overdevelopment of the city, and he denied it. Mm-hmm. For example, this is very cute. This man is very clever.
Hey, and Mike, let me ask you this.
Yes.
And, of course, I'd be happy to hear about Mr. Najarian's
yes.
sins, errors, and omissions.
Yes.
But I'd like to steer you to one of the major issues that you and the Glendale Community. What is the name of that other organization?
It's the Glendale Coalition for Better Government.
Correct. Yes, I had it written down here, but two good guys over there, Frank Gallo and Kadikian, and so forth, and the rest of the good people over there. You guys did yeoman's work over there, but what you've helped to do is to bring attention to the problems that are created by Glendale. They're the escalating prices for water and power in the city of Glendale. Their revenuing of the residents by continuously improving more development in the city to increase their tax base. And what's driving all of this is government greed, the greed of public employees, their desire for more and higher salaries, for increased benefits, and mostly for their pension benefits, which are not being met. What has been the reception that you have received when bringing up those issues from the citizens?
Oh, from the citizens?
Yes.
Oh, I get letters all the time from citizens. I get any from just ordinary people. I just got one today from let me give him a plug. Up in Montrose.
Yes.
Grace in Toontown.
Mm-hmm.
He has a small business. He has a music store, and I'll be publishing his letter to me, which I got this morning. He's fed up. He said, "I understand why people are leaving California."
Right. Now, when you say he understands why people are leaving California, what in particular about Glendale city government aroused his ire?
Well, we are being, every year, our electric and our water rates keep going up and away. So, and we had, I want to say about in the last 6-7 years, our water rates have gone up 60%, electric rate about 50%. And that's all beyond the cost of delivery.
Right.
And then they take that, instead of keeping that money in the utility company, which is, in our case, Glendale Water and Power, to take care of the infrastructure, no, they're taking about $20 million a year, and they're transferring to the general fund to pay for the outrageous salaries and the pensions of our CalPERS union workforce.
Right. Now, they got spanked for that, didn't they?
Yes, the coalition sued the city, and we won 2 lawsuits.
Right. Now, one lawsuit ultimately resulted in an award, I believe, of $67 million against
Actually, we're talking about $58 million.
58, okay. $50 million. And just give the audience a little background. Even though
it's basically, what happens is that the city violates the charter. Because what happens, the charter says the city can transfer up to 25% of the surplus account of the utility company. And what the city is doing is transferring 25% off of the income.
Right. But
that's not right.
But they're also doing something else, or at least it's what was alleged in the lawsuit. I know I went to a conference. Hey, Mike, let me finish. I went to it because this is really important for the listeners to understand how important your point was. Give them a little bit more background. In California, I think it's Prop 98 or one of the propositions.
Actually, it's 218 and 26.
218 and 26, you got it. Thank you. Those propositions make it illegal for a city to charge more than what it costs them to deliver a product or a service. And what they've done is to take the opportunity to raise rates without any rationale, or they start off from the bottom up, factoring in what they think they need from the water company, what kind of income or revenue they need to generate, and they use kind of top-down budgeting
Mike,
rather than bottom-up budgeting. Yes, Mike.
Actually, what they're doing right now, they're appealing it.
Yes. Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah. And which law firm is representing them in the appeal? Isn't it the city attorney? But I think the Coladuno firm, which also has as their one of their attorneys, the city attorney for
Teresa Highsmith.
Teresa Highsmith, she's the city attorney for Sierra Madre and for South Pasadena. But, Mike, hang on. We're going to get back into that here after the break. Mike is raising some important issues. Please call in, especially if you're from Glendale. Let us know what's sticking in your craw over there. You can reach us at 866-870-5752.
If you like what you're hearing and would like to support Radio Free Los Angeles and the California Tax Limitation Committee, please call area code 626-792-1772, 626-792-1772, or kindly visit our website, catlc.net, catlc.net. You can also watch Radio Free Los Angeles on Facebook Live at radiofreela.us.
If you'd like to talk with Radio Free Los Angeles, the phone lines are wide open. 866-870-KRLA. That's 866-870-5752. We're live, local, and here to talk with you. 866-870-KRLA.
All right, we're back with you, Mike Alexander. Before I forget, if you're enjoying this citizen-sponsored radio, become a sponsor. Go, please, to our website, which is
radiofreelosangeles.net.
All right.
And we would love to see some contributions come in tonight.
Yeah, we sure would. We have we're going to continue our conversation here with Mike Mohill, who is the editor and founder of the Glendale Community Newsletter. Are you there, Mike?
Yes, I am.
All right, good. I wanted to go back and finish up one of those points on the city of Glendale. And all cities are required to do ground-up budgeting in determining the cost of their water. Or any utility or service that's provided. And we've seen steady increases in fees, whether it's for zoning or licensing and so forth. And these fees have come under attack in a number of cities, including Oxnard and a few others. And the citizens are waking up to the tax burden that they have to pay and a significant regulatory burden that they have to bear that's imposed on them by the cities. It is really quite something. Now, Mike, would you be willing to take a question or a call or two here with me?
Sure. I just want to make clear on the lawsuit, Coalition for Better Government won.
Yes.
We won it, but it's under appeal by the city.
Okay. And I've known that these cities are out there appealing because they are anxious to be able to calculate their own overblown overhead and factor it into the cost of delivering the product. And, of course, the highest cost in delivering the product is the fact that we're delivering it with government labor, which is high cost by definition. Everybody from the guy who reads the meter to the fellow who turns the wrench or the gal who sends out the bill is all government. They've got it larded with work rules and pensions and benefits and so forth that only the richest of us could ever imagine. Now I've got a caller who's calling in from Glendale who would like to comment on city employees' compensation. Dale from Glendale, you're on the air here with Mike Mohill.
Hi, how are you?
How are you, sir? Thanks for calling in.
Mike Mohill. He's a very dedicated gentleman, and I have a lot of respect for him.
Yes.
Thank you, Dale. You have to say, next time you see me, shake your hand and say you spoke with me on the radio so I can remember, okay?
Okay. I'll do that. I have a real complaint. I was looking for one of my utility bills from Glendale, and say my water, because I use very little water, is, say, $40 or $60. Let's say it's $60 every billing period. Well, by the time they add on a water charge, and they add a billing charge, and they add a whole bunch of other stuff on that, $40 gets morphed into over $100.
Right.
And the same thing with my electrical.
Right.
Yeah.
This is a sneaky thing the city did a few years ago.
What's that?
This is a sneaky thing. Well, it's not really sneaky, but this is what the city did a few years ago because they're desperate for money.
You see okay?
Let's say, for example, you turn off your water. You're going on vacation for 3 months.
Yeah.
And let's say they have a thing called the fixed rate, which is even if you go on vacation, we're going to ding you $30 a month. So when you come back from your 3-month vacation, there's $90 on your next bill.
Yeah. And these guys, I was self-employed all my life. I'm a Vietnam veteran.
So am I.
Oh, are you really? I didn't realize that. Well, thank you for your service.
You too. Thank you.
And I'm a very good electrician, but I'm not a very good businessman. I didn't charge enough.
Government. I was a salesman in my other life.
Were you really?
Yeah.
Well, the government imputed that I wasn't paying enough taxes. So they hit me with a great big tax bill, and a house that I had was free and clear because I'm an old guy now.
Yeah.
I had to put a mortgage on it and hand the money over to the damn government. And these guys, I had no union, no pension. And all these crumb bums in government have unions and pensions, which they should not have. They make so much money, they should save their money while they're working, and then we tell them, hey, you don't get another cent.
You know what we need to do, Dale? Going forward, we need to put every city employee on a 401k and the Social Security, just like you and I, who paid we paid the bills, right? The folks that have to pay the bills, they should also do the same thing.
Absolutely, a level playing field. Dale, thank you for calling in. I know you've called before. We look forward to you continuing to be one of our listeners. Mike, could you tell me some of the worst things that you've been told? I'm sure that that you're not liked by a lot of people, that you've gotten resistance. So we get it all the time. I'm always interested in people who don't agree with us. And I'm particularly interested in one thing because it is a leading indicator. Has anybody with any reputation or holding a position of authority, has anybody told you that the pensions are not a problem?
That was our former city manager.
Oh, is that General Ochoa?
I'm sorry?
Is that Ochoa?
Yes, it was.
Yes. Okay, did any city councilman or anybody with any financial expertise tell you that the pensions were not a problem?
Well, it's funny you should say it that way because, we went to, I think we're both at the same meeting there at the Hilton Hotel, and we had that college professor say we can get out of CalPERS, but it would be difficult.
Yes.
And at the time, the mayor, challenged him and challenged me. He says, "Oh no," he says, "you can't get out of it." I said, "You're wrong, Madam Mayor."
Right.
And also, there was the professor up there in Stanford said the same thing. Sure,
that's Joe Nation. By the way, the fellow that you heard was on here last week.
Really?
Professor Rod Kiewit of the California Institute of Technology. Yes, and I want to thank my good friend Rod for coming on last week. We had a lot of great feedback about it. It was very helpful. And as the professor pointed out, these pensions have gone so far down that there's probably no way for these portfolios to recover, and there's lots of reasons for that that we won't try to go into here with financial speak.
May I say one big problem we have?
Yes.
Okay. In the year 2000, the safety union, police and fire, convinced our state legislature and the governor to change the benefit factor for fire and policemen. At the time, the taxpayers were giving the police and firefighters 75% of their last year's salary. And at the time, after 30 years service, they could retire at the age of 55. Well, they talked with the state legislature and the governor, and they convinced them to change the benefit factor from 75% to a whopping and greedy 90% of their last year's salary. Can you believe? And that's for life.
That's correct.
And then more icing on that. Then they convinced the legislature that because their job is so hard and difficult, they can retire at the ripe old age of 50 now.
That's correct. We have many people. Now, Mike, I want to thank you very much for coming on here. Keep up the good work over in Glendale. If you would like to be on Mike's excellent newsletter, you can send him a note to MJ Mohill, MJMOHILL @gmail.com. Mike, keep up the good work. Best regards to everybody. And you and I will talk soon, my friend. You're listening to Radio Free Los Angeles. Call us, please, and share your thoughts at 866-870-5752.
Come in, Southern California. This is Radio Free Los Angeles. Do you copy? Repeat, do you copy?
Now broadcasting from behind the Iron Curtain in the People's Republic of California, we bring you the voice of free men, free markets, and limited constitutional government. Welcome to citizen-sponsored Radio Free Los Angeles with the President of the California Tax Limitation Committee, Mike Alexander, and America's funniest reporter, Carl Kozlowski.
All right, great. Once again, this is Mike Alexander. I want to welcome all of you back. And we are now in our 30-minute
bonus time.
Bonus time. Okay, that's a good thing.
So we're not going to charge you any extra for this half hour.
Right. Nothing for the humor.
This is on the house.
Right. This one, we're a little bit less formal on this third half hour here. This is the one where I'd like to revisit school choice. You know, all these things that we've talked about here are no accident. Big government doesn't just start happening one day. It's, yes, it progresses, as in progressive, as in cancerous, as in metastasis. It is an evil. But it doesn't exist on its own. And for big government to survive, for big government to thrive as it has, for all of us to get here, it requires that a lot of things happen. It requires a complicit media. It requires a timorous opposition like our current Republicans. It requires, above all, an indoctrination system that is represented by the K through 12 public so-called school, so-called system. It is a system of indoctrination. It spends money and indoctrinates. They're about the only two things that it does well. Although I might say, as I have many, many times, that they're not even particularly good at indoctrination because a lot of kids drop out of our public high schools, particularly in the Los Angeles area. They've got about a 50% graduation rate, so at least 50% of their customers are so sick of the drivel and indoctrination that they leave the system. I mean, you know, these kids vote with their feet at 16. Nobody can keep them in there. They like to try, but, by that time they're a little bit too old. And then they get to these elections, and even then they can't hold that 50%. We see it time and again when big government is on the ballot, or I should say big versus bigger, but when real big government is on the ballot, for example, with Obama or Clinton or whatnot, they're lucky to get 50%. They never break 50%. So even with all the power of indoctrination, even with the media, even with academia, with everybody weighing in on the side of progressivism, of liberalism, of I prefer to just flat out call it communism or socialism. They still have trouble breaking 50% in our country, and it's really important. You can imagine what would happen, however, if we had schools that were as free as the rest of our market for free speech. And I'm reminded of that when we have this young kid, this David Hogg. So I don't know where they came up with this little cockroach, as they called Mohill. I don't know where they found him, but suddenly high school students are able to mount public demonstrations. They get TVs to show up. He's just an amazingly talented senior, isn't he, Carl?
I mean, he looks. There's just something about this guy. He does not look like a 17-year-old high school kid. And where the money's, how they organize so well, it just seems very suspect to me. I think there's somebody behind all this or something.
Well, you think?
And the kid's got a bad attitude. Like, I read an interview. We can't even quote what he just said in an interview this week.
Yeah.
He's talking about parents using the F word, and we're not talking fiscal, and saying that, just unbelievably trash mouth kid. And he's like, oh, the more I do, the more I'm compelled to do. Like it's an ego trip gone wild.
Yeah, well, who the kid reminds me of actually is young John Kerry. Yeah, he's up there posturing.
I think John Kerry would slap this guy.
Oh, no, John Kerry, he's insufferable. Yeah, I put him and Hanoi Jane right in the same category. Loathsome creatures. But this kid is clearly been recruited out of the public schools.
Yeah.
And we've watched here over the last several weeks the same thing that we've seen time and time and time again. We've watched the public schools and the teachers within those schools use their students as political props. They create this illusion of student protest. There's no such thing as student protest. They don't make those decisions. 6th graders, 7th graders, they don't march out of school. They're propagandized, they're organized, and then they're transported at public expense or some Soros-financed operation.
Exactly.
And then the media picks this up, and it becomes a huge propaganda event, and we're asked to suspend our common sense. And they use this kid as a cutout. Now, he's got a mouth all of his own. There's no question about it. But he's told what he's going to do, and he was selected because he was willing to say these things. There were certainly other points of view in that senior class, but those kids, in many cases, were being punished for not turning out a protest. So this kid, I've nicknamed him Boss Hogg. We haven't seen we haven't seen the last of him, and he's just about as persuasive, has just about as much maturity, but he's a fiction. He's a creator. A creative invention of the left-wing press, and everybody's running around. And this kid, of course, I would say that he wasn't paying attention in civics class, but I doubt that they have one at the place where he went to school, because let's see, this little, won't be nice. Let's see. He says, we are sick and tired of the inaction here in Washington and around the country by politicians who are owned by the NRA. Inaction in Washington? Really? If only we had more inaction in Washington. But he goes on to say, Good Morning America, today we are going to start a revolution. So, this kid watches too much TV and imagines himself as the center of some great revolutionary moment, and of course is down on guns. And here's some of this other stuff. Some of his applause lines written for him by John Kerry or one of these people. Today is the beginning of spring, and tomorrow is the beginning of democracy.
You know,
Really? Really?
And Groundhog Day was last month. But the thing is, can I give you a quick example of something that I noticed once as a reporter? When the Iraq War started, I went to the huge, as a reporter, I went and covered the huge 100,000 person march against it, right before it was starting. And Gore Vidal was there, legendary liberal. And, this guy is supposed to be, I'm just saying by reputation, was supposed to be a massively talented wordsmith, brilliant writer, all this, right? And the strangest thing happened. When he was giving his speech, I looked over, I was standing right at the front, and there's this creepy guy that was in charge of the march, running this group that was organizing the march. He was mouthing every word that Gore was saying, and I saw him, and I finally looked at him funny, like, what are you doing? And he froze, and so it was obvious he wrote the words for even Gore Vidal. Right. And he was terrified the second he saw a reporter with a press badge looking at him funny, like, what? And so the thing is that if Gore Vidal had words written for him by some, weird radical, that's what's going on with this kid. Well, he's not thinking for himself. He's being scripted and probably given a nice college scholarship, if not outright money.
Oh, yeah. He's going to be fast-tracked. I don't know. What will it be, Yale or Harvard? Like Barack Obama and one of these wunderkinds that come out. Hey, speaking of my favorite president, this guy is at the center of this whole spying scandal, this whole coup attempt, this whole seditious effort to disenfranchise and disable the Trump presidency. And isn't it amazing that no reporter has that I know of has asked this guy a single question about what went on, about unmasking, about who initiated the FISA warrants. But anyway, we don't do too much of the federal follies. But anyway, you wonder what this guy is doing. So old Barack here can't seem to help us solve any of the problems that are besetting us here in America. But he's off in Japan discussing the Obama Foundation's efforts to, quote unquote, engage the digital space to help young people in the U.S. and across the world get connected.
I've got a digit for him. Anyway,
all right, hang on. But what we'll talk about when we come back about is what his plans are, and this, if this isn't enough, to scare you. We promise that we'll deliver on that. What have I got, 30 seconds over there? All right, good. Hey, look, I won't start anything else right now. Go to radiofreelosangeles.net, click that button, and if you want to call us, Carl, what number?
866-870-5752.
Very good.
If you like what you're hearing and would like to support Radio Free Los Angeles and the California Tax Limitation Committee, please call area code 626-792-1772, 626-792-1772, or kindly visit our website, catlc.net, catlc.net. You can also watch Radio Free Los Angeles on Facebook Live at radiofreela.us.
If you'd like to talk with Radio Free Los Angeles, the phone lines are wide open. 866-870-KRLA. That's 866-870-5752. We're live, local, and here to talk with you. 866-870-KRLA.
All right, back with you. Mike Alexander here, Radio Free Los Angeles, coming to you from our studios in Glendale, KRLA 870. We were just in our last segment there talking about what's Obama doing. It's late at night, and when he's not picking the Final Four, his bracket, or whatever it is, that he amuses himself with. He's out there talking to the Japanese, who I guess are a little bit more polite than and more tame than we conservatives here. But in any event, he was talking about connecting the universe, and this is kind of weird. Some of this weird New Age stuff that he sits there and comes up. I think he's smoking again, but smoking, toking, and snorting. Legal. Oh yeah. So at any rate, here's something. If you want to be scared, listen to this quote. If I could do that effectively, that is connect everybody across the world, then, that's his favorite phrase, then, I would create 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000 young Barack Obamas or Michelle Obamas.
What?
Obama said,
wow,
or the next group of people who could take the baton in that relay race that is human progress.
Now that is the definition of a narcissist.
Oh, yeah.
He would recreate himself 1,000,000 times?
Absolutely. That's right.
Okay, here's
I was made
here's what we're going to do.
In the image and likeness of Barack. Right.
He's got some good Hawaiian stuff over there, I'll tell you that.
Oh, I'm telling you, that's it. But, ladies and gentlemen, we sit here and mock this. But this is exactly the mindset that is incorporated in the political agenda, in the brainwashing and indoctrination that goes on in your schools each and every day of the week. It's reflected in the texts that are selected by the schools to teach people. There's a distortion of history. This is the reason why we are unreconstructed advocates of school choice, so that we can take our children and our money away from this political apparatus called the public school system and begin to educate our children independently. Nothing could possibly be worse than the status quo. And when you look at this kid Hogg, he is a product of a political system. Remember, go back to our Principia Politica, and I'm going to be setting up a page on the California tax limitation page here pretty soon on this, so that you can refer to them by name and print them out for fun and profit. You can sell them on an off-ramp with your oranges. But you have to go back to each and every public employee is a paid partisan political activist. They're government employees. They are there to advance the cause of their institution. It has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with your life, nothing to do with your rewards, nothing. We have to get our children back. And there's just no way, when you look at the amount of money that is being squandered by the federal government, you look at the $1 to $2 trillion in pension benefits. That's not even the ordinary salaries, but the $1 to $2 trillion in pension debts that we haven't funded yet in the state of California. It's clear that we're supposed to live our lives for them and their benefit first. How in the world can we say that in a country and a state here of California where we end up forking over as much as 60% or 65 or 70% of our income, of our sustenance to this institution called government at the state, federal, and local level, and call ourselves free men and women? We are not. And the only reason that you don't hear more about it is because these schools indoctrinate these kids, feed them the drugs, so that they go around feeling like they're actually free men and women, and that the people who are oppressing them is us, and the people who haven't turned over yet all of our property and all of our freedoms. We have to get at that, and unless and until we do, we are never going to effectively attack the growth of government. We won't even be able to talk numbers because most of them can't add. Not without their Obama phones, that's for sure. And that is the whole plan, is to keep the populace dumb, keep them indoctrinated, keep them tame, keep us compliant, make us feel like we're the ones who are the problems, we're the ones who are standing in the way of progress. But and instead of people like Obama and this kid Hogg, all he is a
attention hog.
Yeah, attention hog. He's just a tyrant in training.
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah, I just can't imagine to see him in 5 years when he gets out of college.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Oh, God.
Can you imagine him at a job interview?
I know.
He knows it all. He'll tell you what to ask.
This kid's on Good Morning America. Can you imagine how insufferable it is to be his brother?
Just give him an atomic wedgie.
I know someone just going to pop him. Well, at any rate, we are. Let's see. We've got. We're at 9 minutes here, so we're going to start a little bit early tonight. You heard Mike Mohill talk about all these outrageous salaries, and some of our callers talk about it as well. This has been one of our continuing efforts here, and we'd like to know if you're enjoying this segment, or at least if you're not enjoying hearing about it, or if you think it's productive. If someone wants to write us or talk to us, where do they go, Jonathan?
Well, they can send a email to hq@catlc.net, or you can give us a call at the office, 626-792-1772.
Yeah, we'd love to have some feedback from you about the contents and so forth, and see what your preferences are. The ratings on our show are picking up. We're finding an audience, but we are listener-sponsored radio. We'd like to know from our audience a little more feedback on topics that you'd like us to cover. What makes your bell ring? Do you think that we're serious here? Or if you don't think that we're in crisis, why do you think we're not in crisis? And if we are in crisis and you're not doing anything about it, what in the heck is it that you need to hear or what has to be said or done before you will pick up a clipboard and go out there and to help pass tax repeals and to get pension reform and to get control of your children back? It seems to me that these are pretty basic things that motivated our founding fathers and mothers a long time ago to take truly revolutionary action and to embrace the Declaration of Independence and to adopt the Constitution of the United States, which both as written and as adopted remain the two most revolutionary documents in this world. They're just as provocative today as they were then, and you only need to listen to Little Boss Hogg to know that the Second Amendment, our guaranteed rights, are just as controversial today as they were to the King of England then, perhaps more so. But in any event, that's it. And Madam Call Screener, or I should say Miss Call Screener, is that the same fellow who called earlier? Just let me know. If it's a new fellow, then we'll take him. Otherwise, I want to go into our favorite feature of the week, and that is Government Grifters of the Week. Music, please.
And now, this week's Government Grifter Awards, live from Glendale, California. Well, we've got some good ones this week, Mike.
All right, what are they?
They come from the city of Long Beach.
Glamorous Long Beach.
So the first nominee, it's an interesting, I'm not sure what this person does, but it's a chief wharfinger. What is a wharfinger?
I had to look that up, and it's somebody who's in charge of maintaining a wharf.
Okay, well, I guess that makes sense for Long Beach, right?
I guess.
Well, the chief wharfinger, total salary and benefits in 2016, $144,000 a year.
And $859. Yes.
Yes, and $859.
Wharfinger.
Chief wharfinger.
All right.
So,
okay.
And our next nominee is the assistant to the city manager.
Okay, the assistant.
Yeah, there's a couple different assistants.
Right, okay.
And he is total salary and benefits in 2016, $146,000 a year.
Wow.
Yeah. For the assistant city manager.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's the one that sharpens the pencils and And what, carries incense in front of the city manager?
That's our next nominee.
Okay, all right.
The executive assistant to the city manager.
What?
Oh, okay.
So the city manager needs a lot of help here.
We're moving up the food chain.
And they have a mayor, too. In this.
Yeah.
And so this executive assistant is making $130,000 a year.
Wow. The executive assistant makes less than the assistant?
Yes.
That's all backwards.
Well, the assistant city manager, I think, is higher up on the...
Okay,
all
got
right.
it.
Well,
yeah, so, and then there's a mayor that makes $183,000 a year.
Wow. So what does the city manager make?
Okay, that's our last nominee.
Oh, okay.
Right on cue, Mike. Thank you. All right.
So who's the winner?
The city manager...
City mismanager, yes.
City mismanager of Long Beach, $348,000 a year.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So just to run that city, it takes 2 assistants, a mayor, and a city manager. And those 4 people alone are like $750,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
amazing.
Yeah. Wow.
Now, all of those salaries, of course, subject to pension, lifetime benefits, and all that sort of thing. Right. So, that is astonishing, and that's the city of Long Beach. And I think the population now, there's somewhere around 650 to 700.
461,000 is what we found.
Yeah,
in 2010, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, you guys want to hear who the winner is?
Yes, please.
The envelope, please. The winner of this week's Government Grifter Award goes to the city manager.
All right. Hey-o.
This is city manager's first nomination and first Grifter Award. Congratulations, city manager.
That's so romantic.
Yeah. Keep up the good work. Better yet, just call us sick tomorrow. We don't need you. Just quit.
We rarely have the names of these people, but actually I've got a name of somebody who's grifting really bigly this week.
Oh, yeah.
If we close with a rant?
Yeah,
Now, before we do, let's give you a little bit of background on Carl here. We got 1 minute to go. Hey, you rant.
Oh, boy. Okay, so I want to bring up a guy named Vaskin Gordikian. He's a Pasadena Police Department lieutenant who made his salary for one man alone, sitting in a police car, thinking about donuts, pulling people over for busted taillights, $197,000. And on top of that, he was running an illegal gun, or allegedly running an illegal gun racket, and just got busted by the feds, indicted, and finally put on unpaid leave. The past year, while the feds investigated him, he earned $190,000 of his salary while on paid leave. Right. It's amazing. What does it take to get fired in Pasadena?
I know.
So $190,000 for one guy that was just a police lieutenant under investigation. So imagine just how much, So when people say, where's the waste? Right there. Congratulations, Vaskin Gordikian.
And thank you, Carl. Carl Rice for Pasadena Weekly. Go see that article. Him and Andre Coleman, great article. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week. Radio Free Los Angeles out.